All right, guys, if you're watching this video, then presumably it's because you've been working through your practice for multiplying polynomials on page 20 and you're having some difficulty now that you've gotten to the more complicated ones. The issue here is that we're multiplying a binomial times a trinomial. So instead of just having two terms here, we've got three. The procedure I'm going to show you here would work even if you had more than three terms, if you had four or five. And really, it would work even if your first term was more than just a binomial. But I'm going to show you two of them. You can watch as much or as little of this as you want just to get a better idea of how it would work. I'm going to stick to the method that I prefer, which is to treat this like a distribution problem, because ultimately I want to multiply everything in the second polynomial by all the terms in the first. And the easiest way to do that is just to treat it like distribution to keep everything nice and organized. So I'm going to start by taking this 8x and multiplying it by the first term in the second expression, which is negative 2x. When I do that, I'm multiplying my coefficients, so 8 times negative 2 is negative 16, and then I'm multiplying my variables, x times x. Remember that there's an understood exponent of 1 on each of those, so when I multiply variables with the same base, I'm going to add those exponents, so it ends up being 1 plus 1, which is 2, which is where that x squared comes from. Now I'm going to multiply this 8x times the second term, which is 6xy. Again, my coefficients get multiplied, so 8 times 6 is 48. And then my x's get put together, so x to the first times x to the first is x squared, and then I'm still multiplying by that y, which doesn't have any variables to get paired up with. Right, now I'm going to multiply 8x times 4y. Coefficients get multiplied. 8 times 4 is 32. And then there's no other x's, so I've still got x, and I've still got this y being multiplied as well. All right, now I've multiplied everything by 8x, and now I'm going to multiply everything by this negative 5y. It's important that you remember that that minus sign there ultimately serves as a negative on this term. So when I distribute it, I'm distributing a negative 5y, not a positive 5y. So I'm going to start by just going to the very first term. Negative 5y times negative 2x. We do our coefficients first, so negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. And then I've got a y and an x. Those can't be combined really, so they're just going to be multiplied by each other. Right? Now I'm going to say negative 5y times positive 6xy. Again, my coefficients, I say negative 5 times positive 6. Well, negative times positive is negative, so I get negative 30. And then y times xy. The x doesn't have anything to buddy up with, so it's still just going to be x. I've got an understood 1 on this y and an understood 1 on this y. So I end up adding those exponents and I get y squared. Right? And then the last pairing is to say negative 5y times 4y. Again, I've got negative 5 times 4, which is negative 20. And I've got y times y, which is going to be y squared. Right, the last step to do is going to be to check and see if you have any like terms, meaning any terms that have the same variable or series of variables and the same exponents on those variables. So negative 16x squared, I have x squared here, and I've got it here too, but there's a y there, which means those are not like terms because that one doesn't have a y. Nowhere else do I have an x squared, so that one does not have any like terms. X squared y doesn't show up anywhere else, so no like terms there. 32xy and 10xy have the exact same variables, so those are like terms and those are going to get combined. Here I've got xy squared, that doesn't show up anywhere else, and here I've got y squared, and that doesn't show up anywhere else. So I'm going to, all the ones that don't have like terms, we can just rewrite exactly as you see them. just like in an order of operations problem, really. And then these two like terms I can add up. They're both positive, so I just get to say 32 plus 10, add those coefficients, and I get positive 42, and then xy is still being multiplied. And then I've got to finish up the problem with my other terms, and that's it. So I realize that it's a lot of work, you've got a lot of steps, but none of them should be too terribly difficult once you kind of get the hang of it. All right, so let me show you one more. This one's slightly different, but it's going to be the same basic process. I'm going to start by distributing this first term into all the terms of my trinomial. So negative 3r times 8r squared, negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. R with an understood 1 exponent times r squared is going to be r to the third because I'm saying 1 plus 2 on those exponents. We told you those exponent laws would come up a lot, and they do. All right, so now I'm going to say negative 3r times 8r. Again, that's a negative 3 and a positive 8, so that's negative 24, and I've got r to the first times r to the first, which is r to the second. Right? And then my last pairing for the 3r, or the negative 3r, is negative 3r times negative 2. Make sure you notice that there's that negative there. So negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6, so I put plus 6. There's no variable here, but I do have that r there, so that 6 is going to be multiplied by r. All right, now we've got to take our 10 and multiply everything over here by 10. So luckily there's no variable here, so I'm just multiplying all the coefficients by 10. So 10 times 8 is 80. It's going to be positive 80. R squared is still being multiplied. 10 times 8r is going to be positive 80, and I've still got that r. And then 10 times, remember again, it's a negative 2, so 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. Right? Just as we did up here, our next step is going to be to find any like terms. This one has an r cubed. There are no other r cubes, so I don't have to pair that up with anybody. Negative 24r squared. Make sure you include the negative there. So that negative 24r squared is going to go with this positive 8r squared. And then I've also got a positive 6r here and a positive 8r here. So those two are going to go together. And then I also have that minus 20, which is the only constant, so it doesn't have any like terms. All right, so when I rewrite this, I'm going to put 24r cubed. Remember that our commutative property and associative property mean I can, because this is addition, I can rearrange this order however I want and group them however I want. So I'm going to say negative 24 plus 80r squared and go ahead and add those. That, I believe, is going to be 56r squared. You can put it in your calculator if you want to check me. And then to combine my 6r and my 8r, those are both positive. So that's a nice, easy 86r. And then I've got my minus 20. All right, so those are really as complicated as it's going to get at this point. If you still need some help, please let your teacher know, but hopefully this was beneficial to you. We'll see you in class.